Let's look at the news. Have you been paying attention to this story?
Try not to. Honestly, I don't look at the news anymore. I listen to it because, what I meant to say was I smell it.
Yeah, and it smells bad.
It smells bad. There's just so many bad smells now.
I think of my Bible as a loaf of bread, fresh out of the oven, and anytime I want to, I could take a smell of that delicious buttered bread.
All of a slice.
I'd love to give you one.
I know a lot of kids who used to roll blunts with Bible pages, and I was always like, no, not for me.
Yeah, I remember that. I had that experience behind the bleachers.
Yeah.
One of my friends, Daryl Schnall, he has since committed suicide, unfortunately.
AM 429.
But yeah, I remember he tore a page out of the...
Meniscus? That hurts.
Ooh la la!
A meniscus, book 5, chapter LeBron. I can't believe it went to the Lakers, but
What hurts worse, your knee or your wallet? Because those meniscus operations, they're expensive.
I think they try to figure out what you got, and they try to make it balance out. So you stop thinking about how much it hurts because you're thinking about how much it hurts the pocketbook.
So this is like the new Oxycontin is freaking out over how much your medical bill is?
That's what I hear. This just came in. Have you heard about this? It's something called digital drugs. Digital drugs.
Say what?
I'll read it to you. Here it is. It just came in off the hotline. Digital drugs. Are your kids using digital drugs? Special frequencies that go from high to low using binaural. I don't know. Binaural headphones.
Yeah.
Going from high to low and low to high at the same time creates something and a euphoric effect in the listener, often called digital drugs.
Well, why don't we take a download of one of those and play it for the listener?
Okay, well, we'll take a listen. I want to hear. Can I hear some of this digital? Abby, Abby, can we hear some of this?
There's no way this stuff could work. I
don't do drugs, but so obviously, I can listen to the Word of God. I can listen to some digital, quote unquote, digital drugs, right?
Hey, let me tell you something right
Abby,
now. If the word of drugs is God, then I'm a Goddie.
I'm a drug addict.
Let's
AM 429. I'm a drug addict.
Let's play this. So whatever this is some kind of digital sound. I guess it's gonna make us all high.
Clinton Bell in the morning.
We're gonna play this for you now, guys. I'm sure you'll be fine. But this is something off of what the hell is that? It's www.digitaldrugsiamkult.
You lost me at the word, the www. If I see 3 letters next to each other, I'm like, I'm out. Okay.
My niece came up to me the other day.
She's so cute.
Thank you so much. She's a delightful, darling child. Gloria, I love you if you're out there listening. She comes up to me with her iPad or whatever, iPic, whatever you call these things.
It's the size of a GD couch.
Giant. It's bigger than her head. She comes up to me with this thing, and she's wanting me to punch in some kind of series of buttons and my thumbprint here and then my social there and all this crazy stuff. I know. What are you doing, Gloria?
Yeah, 449.
You a Russian hacker, But
yeah, that stuff's all malarkey. Honestly, Deborah, do we have it? Okay, great.
Do we got it?
I guess we got it.
All right, let's go ahead and play that file.
Yeah.
That's
Clint and
That was some new. That's the digital.
That's we have the hot wire line said that's digital drugs. It's digital drugs
from from the internet.
From that sphere of mycelium interconnected influence.
Mycelium.
Well, I don't know.
I didn't even know. We only
Who said
went
that?
on a date.
Did I say that word? Just kidding. I don't know. What? All right. Well, we've got a lot of stuff coming up here this hour. Taco Bell, I guess, is changing the color of cheese. Did you hear about this?
Oh, yeah. I heard they're changing the color of cheese to like this glowing, interpulsating.
They're going to change the color. I don't know why, but I guess, if you're not on board with the color of the Taco Bell cheese, then I guess you're not on board with cheese.
How do they get all those delicious ingredients into one burrito?
I think you gotta not ask that question, pretty much. Here's what you do. You go there, you get it, you eat it, then you ask the question.
And that's why you're my best friend. We're
Exactly.
going to jump right back into this wonderful show. But first, some quick business.
AM 49.
Every time you breathe, it smells like a grave robber. Opened up a coffin in the summer heat. Every exhalation, it is a blasphemation. Makes your living room smell like a dead man's feet. Quip, you should use Quip. Why not use Quip? This episode of the DTFH is brought to you by Quip. The truth is, most of us are brushing our teeth wrong, not for long enough, and forget to change our brush on time. That's because most brands focus on selling flashy gimmicks rather than better brushing, but not Quip. So what makes Quip so different? Quip's built-in timer helps you clean for the dentist-recommended 2 minutes with guiding pulses that remind you when to switch sides. Quip's an electric toothbrush. It's a fraction of the cost of bulkier brushes, while packing the right amount of vibrations to help clean your teeth. Quip's subscription plans are for your health, not just convenience. They deliver new brush heads on a dentist-recommended schedule every 3 months for just $5, including free shipping worldwide. Doesn't matter where you are. You're in a cave. You're stuck in a cave. You're going to get a Quip brush, baby. Quip also comes with a mount that suctions right to your mirror and unsticks to use as a cover for hygienic travel wherever you take your teeth. You don't want to put your brush too close to the toilet in a hotel. Don't put your brush right. A lot of us, we get to a hotel, the first thing we do, we dip our brush in the toilet. Don't do that. Take that brush, use the Quip suction, stick it to the mirror far away from that deadly backsplash. And finally, everyone loves Quip. They were on Oprah's O-List. Named one of Time's best inventions, and it's the first subscription electric toothbrush accepted by the American Dental Association, and those guys are hardcore. Plus, they're backed by a network of over 20,000 dentists and hygienists, and hundreds of thousands of happy brushers use Quip every day. Quip starts at just $25, and if you go to getquip.com/DTFH right now, you'll get your first refill pack free with a Quip electric toothbrush. That's your first refill pack free at getquip.com/DTFH. Spelled GETQUIP.com/DTFH. Let's get those rotten bits of old meat out of your nasty fangs, baby. It's time for you to smell good. A deep thank you to all my Patreon subscribers. If you're ready to dive deep into the pulsating nectar of the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast, why not go to patreon.com/DTFH and subscribe? Also, much thanks to those of you who continue to use our Amazon link. Anything you hear us talk about on this podcast, you should buy it on Amazon. Just click through the link. Thank you for those of you who continue to use that link. And now, everyone, without further ado, please welcome to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast, an incendiary, fearless human being, a person who is not terrified at all to speak the truth. Abby Martin is a journalist, and she is the host of the Empire Files, which is a wonderful show on satellite network Telesur English and YouTube. She is an amazing person, and she's one of the very few people who make me nervous to be around her. Not because she's dangerous, but because the people she's pissed off are deadly. Everybody, please stretch out your angelic astral wings and embrace today's guest, the brilliant Abby Martin. Abby.
Hi.
Welcome
Duncan.
back. So good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Let's start with the most important thing.
Yeah.
The cancellation of the Roseanne Barr show. Did you see that shit?
I did. What I was confused about was, why is it this time with her calling a black person an ape? Why was this time the time that it was just too much for ABC? You know, when
She's called black people apes
absolutely,
before?
yeah. Someone brought up a tweet from her calling Susan Rice a man swinging big ape balls back in 2013. And this is after the photo shoot with the burnt cookies of her dressed like Hitler. I mean, there's been several questionable things that Roseanne has done.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess in this case, I don't know, what is the ape that broke the camel's back? It's one like sometimes when you see people get, incinerated these days,
right?
You feel authentically bad for them because like they were drunk or something, they were on speed and they tweeted something that they truly, I don't think they meant. But with her, people are really celebratory right now in a way that I don't feel that.
I feel like
about.
What's unfortunate is I do think that she is mentally ill. Back during her shtick, when Roseanne was first out, she would make fun of her, and she would make fun of the mental illness and her popping pills and stuff. But now she actually believes her that she's not mentally ill and that she really has this forbidden knowledge of QAnon and the pedophilic demon cult and all that stuff. So it's weird. I mean, I think that someone has to be mentally ill. If just 5 years ago they were saying Israel's a Nazi state, and then now they're taking the photos, like I said, with the burnt Jew cookies, and then now today being like Palestinians are Nazis. It's just a complete reversal in a really weird way.
This is a really rough time to be mentally ill in this country.
It is,
because having a podcast and being on Rogan's show, it's really taught me a lot about how people can get off track.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll make the wretched mistake of going to some message thread. And
don't do that.
What's that?
Don't do that.
Don't do that. But you do see where there's lack of information, people who are mentally ill or scared will fill in that lack of information with some insane theory about what's going on there. And sometimes those theories are about me or Joe, and having been with him or myself, knowing I'm definitely not, last time I checked, in the CIA, and I don't think I'm in the Illuminati. If I am, they're doing a really good job of keeping me in the dark about my membership.
I'm still waiting for my Soros checks.
The Soros, exactly. Yeah. All those things. You're getting Soros checks. You're bought and sold.
Right.
I'm bought and sold. Joe's bought and sold.
Right.
And you realize that this is happening from lack of data. Like, they don't have access to my bank accounts or your bank accounts. They don't see, we aren't cashing checks from the government, but they fill it in with this lunacy. That's what's happening. And it's kind of sad, because I think these people just want the world to be that exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We're all controlled opposition. We're all getting paid by Soros. But I think it goes down to the whole, this massive mistrust in the corporate media apparatus. It's coming from a genuine place, right? We got sold the Iraq War. We get sold basically every imperialist adventure from our government. that ends in disaster. Aside from that, the Patriot Act, all these endless catastrophes. So I think that there's a reason why people distrust the mainstream media, but then they want to fill in the gaps, right? They want people to close the circle for them and say, well, what, tell me the alternative theory, because it's too hard and daunting to stand in the face of this kind of naked corporate tyranny without a solution or answer.
What a beautiful way to put it. It's frustrating.
It is.
It's frustrating. It's complex. It's a million different levels to it. Real, not like, sticking pictures to the wall that you cut out of Time magazine.
I do that too, with the red tape all connected.
But it is, the world is, just think how complex any given family. Take any given family and look at how complex just that group of people can get in their interactions. And then from that, create an entire planet.
Right.
And it's incomprehensibly, on one level, chaotic and complex. And we can't stand this feeling. That's the problem. We can't stand the feeling. The people who believe that school shooters are some kind of MK Ultra, Project Monarch, Manchurian candidate, trained by the CIA, drugged by the CIA, and sent to schools to shoot kids to get the guns taken away. That's so much easier to believe and safer to believe because there's order there than it's just, no, people go fucking nuts sometimes and shoot things up. That's a little more daunting, right? Because we want to feel in control.
Yeah, no, I think, we're the world's largest empire. We have the most guns out of anywhere except other than, I think, Libya. And we're wondering, obviously, the simplest explanation really is a lot of the times the honest one, that in a society where we're empire babies, we're, this toxic masculinity and also militarization of everything. Of course people are going to fucking lose their shit. And, and especially like under capitalism and this individualism where you have to make it. You got to be popular, kid. You gotta pick yourself up by your bootstraps and be rich, kid. You got to be popular. It's all about you. And if you're not, you're a fucking loser. You've done something wrong. And that really doesn't work for a lot of people. And it really puts people into a corner where sometimes they lose their shit. Like we said, I mean, we're living in a mentally ill society for a very good reason. And I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a multitude of things. But that's why we have this fake news versus Russia hysteria phenomenon where it's either everything's fake news that doesn't worship our anointed leader, or it's Russian propaganda of people who are this sneering punditry class that can't accept why Hillary lost and why reality is the way it is. And so we're here kind of waiting in the middle, just trying to sort out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah. And what's confusing, and then to add insult to injury, we've got Trump in line to get a Nobel Peace Prize for denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. So then it's like, well, this man, many of his policies, I on my Patreon, somebody gave me a real talking to that I liked. They were right. They were like, you sound really out of touch. I was talking about how people don't seem to be so nuanced and stuff about Trump, being partially good and partially bad. And this person wrote to me, I'm not sure if it was a he or a she, Jody. Thanks, Jody. Said, listen, I've been working in the unions for 20 years. Trump sucks. He's the worst thing that ever happened to us. But for you to say that we're not aware that there's some good things presidents do too makes you seem completely out of touch. I appreciated that. That's absolutely, completely true. But this conundrum of having a president that's fucking with the unions, deregulating shit that probably doesn't need to be deregulated, and yet denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula, for real, this is now it's become when you were watching The Apprentice, certainly you never thought that guy's going to bring peace to Korea.
Well, this is the one good thing about Trump is that because he, on one hand, he's the biggest puppet, quote unquote, the biggest deep state puppet that ever existed. But on the other hand, he does have that kind of streak of independence where, unlike every other president who has refused to meet with the North Korean leadership, which has been a disaster, right? Why is it that we're refusing to have diplomacy and talk to people who are so-called enemies? Right. That's insane. So I thought it was great that Trump was like, you know what? I'm going to actually talk to him. And the world just flipped their shit. I mean, you had Rachel Maddow saying there's a reason why no other leader has ever met with the North Korean leadership. It's like, no, that's actually not good, Rachel. We shouldn't be egging on war in the region. But because, true to Trump's erratic nature, he's already like reneged on the deal, and he's like, you know what, I'm not going to do it anymore. And Kim Jong-un is like, look, we're actually going to send now this delegation of North Koreans to try to convince him to get it to happen. I think, but they opened the door. Trump opened the door for it to happen. I think the really interesting thing, Duncan, is why is it that two regions, right, and we're talking about the same country, North and South Korea, they want peace. The overwhelming majority of people polled in the region want peace. Why is it even up to the U.S. to be like, you know what, actually, you guys can't have it yet? We have to like be involved in we have to oversee this whole process. I mean, that's insane to me that the U.S. has to even be involved in two regions who want to end this war.
Why is that? What's your answer?
Because the U.S. Is an empire, and we've shaped and colonized the planet. And so you look at the planet today, and everything's either who are the colonizers and who are the colonized. And in terms of Korea, you can't look at the region of Korea and all the news stories that come out about Korea without understanding how the U.S. empire has shaped the Korean peninsula and how it also contributes to the fomenting of war. Really quickly, I mean, the U.S. is the one who came in and arbitrarily drew a line through a National Geographic map to draw the 38th parallel, which was splitting the country in two.
Was it actually a National Geographic map?
Yes. Yes. It was like literally someone who didn't even know what the hell Korea looked like. And they're like, here's the line of the 38th parallel. And this is on top of decimating the country, destroying 25% of all, killing off 25% of the entire population, decimating all infrastructure. We only basically pulled out of Korea because there was nothing else left to bomb. And so fast forward till today, when we make Korea look like the belligerent actor, like, oh, Kim Jong-un is genocidal and he's threatening us every day. Well, we're the ones who are surrounding Korea with war games and warships. There's torpedo nuclear submarines that could destroy North Korea in a day. There's B-52 bombers just set up in Guam, and tens of thousands of troops stationed in Korea and Guam that could just destroy and obliterate Korea again. So they've been through this. They've built themselves up in a military fortress to prevent further destruction of their entire country. So there's a lot of things that I feel like are omitted. But yeah, I mean, I really think that Trump does deserve credit for at least opening the door, right? Because this has never been done before with the U.S. But yeah, it's perplexing because on the other hand, he definitely doesn't deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. Remember when Obama got one the first day in office before he even did anything?
Yes.
But after, Trump has overseen just so much crazy shit that it's hard to imagine him getting a Peace Prize. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think that it's a disgrace, the fact that people are actually egging on war and telling him that he's doing something bad for wanting to open the dialogue. That's insane.
That's where it gets really weird to me, is the same people who at one point seemed to have wanted peace in the most vehement way. Now they want war because it's Trump, right? Like they want war because I don't know what it is. To me, that's where I start getting very confused, where it seems like people are just supporting infinite, endless war. I mean, this is the idea, right? Like, God, I rode with some mystical Uber driver today. He was Korean, and he was breaking it all down for me. And I was saying, oh my God, maybe Trump's going to bring peace to the Middle East too. What if that happens? Then we're really all going to feel like everything's fucking insane. If he's like Jesus or something, like if Trump is the second coming of Christ, just how weird would that be? Oh, now there's peace in the Middle East somehow by his insanity. Like, can you imagine? And then you have to deal with the fact, we're kind of friends with China now.
Right.
Oh shit, we're kind of friends with Russia too. We actually seem to be kind of just sort of trading with everybody, and it's sort of a mildly peaceful planet. And now everyone's going to flip it. And I don't think this... My Uber driver's like, that's never going to fucking happen. He said, because the United States is the number one weapons manufacturer. And he said the creepiest thing, he said, if you make umbrellas, you got to have rain. And I know. And it was so sad. Hard. It's so harsh to imagine that. But do you think that's true? These conspiracy theorists, me included, get me on enough mushrooms, and I'll start imagining that, actually, we're intentionally making war happen because some lobbyist is whispering in the ear of some politician who's whispering in the ear of some other politician to go to war at some place where we don't need to go to war just to sell bombs. How true is that?
So I think, unfortunately, Duncan, I don't think it's really a conspiracy theory. I think that, again, if you look at the world in terms of the U.S. being the largest empire that's ever existed, right? We're talking about 900 military bases that span the entirety of the world, military personnel in almost every country.
Yeah.
Aside from that, you just look at the way and how the extent to which the U.S. has intervened and usurped the democratic processes of countless countries. In Latin America alone, the number is 56. So you look at the way that the world is structured. And
Wait, I'm sorry. May I stop you there?
Go ahead.
Tell me how. Just if like you and I suddenly are working. What is
Yeah.
it? The CIA that does
Yeah.
that. So you and I are working in the CIA. Just quickly break down what is the order of events that leads up to overthrowing it?
So it's really easy. Look at the way the world is now. What countries is the U.S. press and establishment fomenting regime change against?
We got Syria.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got, I guess, I don't even know. Would you even say Palestine? I mean,
Palestine, Iran, Venezuela, right? Venezuela is a big one that keeps coming up. So those countries, what do they all have in common? Well, they all are not completely in servitude to the U.S. military and economic or banking establishment. That is very obvious, right? These countries have not laid down like a carpet to U.S. business or militarism. That's very true. So that's the way that the U.S. operates. It's the countries that aren't completely in servitude to us that we knock down and replace their leaderships. I mean, this is all.
How many are left?
Just a couple. Iran, Venezuela. I mean, the ultimate prizes are inevitably, obviously, Russia and China. Those are the big prizes. Those are the big competitors in terms of capitalism.
Right.
But right now, we have these little countries that are still semi-independent post-colonial states that we need to knock down in order to get to those big prizes, Russia and China. I mean, this is an open conspiracy. This is a conspiracy of capitalism. You need to keep growing as a system economically, and the only way to do that is to cross nation states and cross borders to keep seizing different economies, consolidating and monopolizing those industries. And that's the way that the U.S. runs. That's the way that the U.S. has operated. We had World War II, World War I and World War II, where you had a bunch of different competing empires that kind of all came to a head with the dropping of the nuclear bomb. The U.S. asserted itself as the dominant empire. And since then, we've been destabilizing and destructuring the entire fucking world and taking out leaders that have threatened our economic hegemony. And that's the way that we are today. So I think that, taking Iran down, taking Syria down, all of these countries, look at Libya, the Gaddafi wanted to basically get off the dollar. I mean, Venezuela was talking about getting, basically using their resources for the people instead of U.S. bankers. And so it's not, it sucks. I'm as big of a conspiracy theorist as the next person, but like, this is not a conspiracy. This is just the reality that we live in.
Okay. Well, this is instead of envisioning world peace. Mm-hmm. I want you to describe to me what the world looks like when the United States, if the United States, like you're saying, succeeds. We take out all of the countries that you just mentioned, including the big prizes. Mm-hmm. We do regime changes there. Now what does the world look like?
Oh, God. I mean, it's really dystopian, and it's like Blade Runner, like very dystopian. I feel like it's... you have this monolithic empire that is no longer needs to foment war constantly, but you're going to have that kind of 1984 Orwellian society where you just have imagine war outside of yourself without, it's just a construct of the threat without that actually existing. So I feel like we'd live in like this virtual reality setting of this totalitarian nightmare where we've just created a fake enemy that actually doesn't even have to exist anymore. And that's what the establishment can do to us.
That is so creepy. So you're saying like suddenly like, okay, so it's no more Putin. We've got some, I don't know, someone in there, U.S. approved. Yeah. The Ayatollah is gone.
Yeah.
Now we've got someone approved by the U.S. Assad is replaced by somebody. And you're saying now we're going to invent people to fight?
I think so.
Because you still have to sell weapons.
Yeah, exactly. You still have to sell weapons. It's so just a construct.
But so in a weird way, isn't that maybe what's already happening in the sense that we're just let's just leave a couple of things out there to keep fighting so that we keep selling these bombs.
And back to your point about how everyone works in concert to sell that. It's so true, Duncan. Look at the media. I mean, we're talking about the fact that the media always eggs on war, right? And the fact that Trump wanted a dialogue with North Korea, and you actually had people opposing that. Where you have Trump bombing Syria, the only time that you see bipartisan praise for Trump is every time he just wants to bomb something.
That is true.
Like dropping the mini nuke, the Moab bomb on ISIS caves, quote unquote, in Afghanistan. Everyone just loved it. You had Brian Wilson with a heart on, talking about the beauty of our weapons. It's stunning what the people do to basically egg on Trump and cheer on military intervention. And this is why, Duncan, because you look at the media. The media is subsidized by banks, weapons contractors, and oil companies. That's why we don't hear about climate change on the media. Like, we literally don't hear about these things. And all you have is, in the commercial break, you'll see a commercial for a tank.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
This is one I remember watching. I don't remember what CNN, and they're like a Halliburton commercial comes on.
Yeah.
But why? Yeah. And I've always thought, like, who are they advertising to?
They're just reminding people who owns the message. That's who owns the message, and that's the machine, man. The machine just operates on its own. So you're saying, they have to keep selling weapons. That's the machine. And if people dissent or disagree with the ultimate goal of selling weapons, they'll be pushed out of the board of directors. They're their own grave diggers. I mean, they're basically just digging their own graves, and people who disagree with this end vision are just going to be removed.
Have you ever met anyone who works at one of these places?
No.
God, wouldn't that be cool? I really want to meet them. I want to talk to a weapons manufacturer, like someone deep in Raytheon or whatever. Because these are the people I always wonder about the most. Because surely they are not feeling great about what they're doing, are they? Or are they just sort of, I don't know, demonic? I just can't imagine that in these places that there's people who are 100%, like if I were, putting the last bit of polish on a bomb I just made, which they do, they shine them. There's like a whole like bomb
polishers.
Yeah. I guarantee they have something that polishes the missiles that they sell. Because when you see the missiles, they look good. Like they've been cleaned. They've got a gleam to them, like a new car.
Yeah,
a fresh $100,000 missile.
New missile smell. I got the.
Oh my God.
The gunpowder smell. I think that people are compartmentalized, Duncan. I think the vast majority of people working at Raytheon, Lockheed Martin are compartmentalized into their own units. And a lot of these people, you've met them, you go to college with them, and they're all like revolutionary and hardcore, and then they just become fucking cogs in the machine because that's the system. We can't all just go out and fight the man forever. You have to like make money and do your job, and a lot of these companies are the only opportunities for some of these people in a lot of areas.
It seems like the only hope here, though, is that at the weapons manufacturers, we've got I don't know what the chain of command is at a weapons factory. Mm-hmm. There's someone running the show who definitely loves killing people, gets excited about body counts, probably gets reports on the body counts and like sends those to other departments. Like, what's going on with your bomb? It only killed 50 people, but we dropped it in an area where it should have killed 500 people, Jack. What's happening here?
Right.
These meetings are happening, but it seems like somewhere down the line, there's people there who maybe feel bad or don't want to be there. It seems like the only hope would be people at these companies just quit. Like, we're not going to make weapons anymore. That's in fantasy. It's a it's a literal pipe dream.
It's a pipe dream because jobs are always going to be needed, and people are always going to choose that over, I'm just going to quit from some sort of moral compass that's guiding me. Because, look, at the end of the day, it's the cultivation of the dehumanization of the other. So as long as we're dehumanized to think of people less than ourselves, and as long as we're living in the empire, if you work in some of these weapons manufacturers, you obviously have conditioned yourself into thinking that these people deserve to be killed. Otherwise, you wouldn't be comfortable taking a job there. That's like, it's just the way that we're conditioned. The media tells you these people are our enemy, they need to die. It's just the same reason that no one who is a Democrat who's upset about Trump's policies now, claiming to be upset about Trump's policies in the Middle East, cared when Obama was bombing 7 Muslim countries and up to drone strikes.
Didn't give a shit.
Yeah, didn't give a shit.
Didn't give a shit. And this is where it gets really, I guess just because it's happening at home, it's obvious, but these rotten school shootings, I just can't even imagine being a parent. And
oh my God.
I just don't know what that feels like. I cannot even imagine. But those school shootings happen, and when everyone freaks. But then when we do bombings that kill kids overseas, nobody really talks about it. Why aren't there marches? Why aren't we marching? Why don't we march on the weapons manufacturers? Why aren't people sitting around Raytheon downtown or in fucking, where is it? It's in Westchester or some shit. Right? Yeah. Every time I go to LAX, you pass Raytheon. Yeah. Why aren't people protesting around there, Abby? Why do we seem to be completely numb to the violence of the empire, but we seem completely freaked out when violence happens inside of our own schools?
I think it's human psychology, and also, that has a lot to do with it, obviously, but also we've externalized all the horrible shit that we do to other people. So that's like I always say, the safest place to be is within the U.S. because you're safe from U.S. bombs and U.S. regime change. And so we've externalized all of the violence, the hate. You go to other places that are affected by U.S. foreign policy, and they're just like, I love Americans. Like, they can all separate what Americans are to their government. But we don't separate other people to their government. We hate Iranians. We think Palestinians are terrorists. And but then there's also the thing about the hypocrisy with especially the Democratic Party when it comes to these mass shootings, because they all like to pontificate about the NRA. Like you said, Duncan, we are the largest weapons manufacturer in the fucking world.
Right.
We have the most guns out of any goddamn nation. And here we are selling weapons to police state theocratic dictatorships like Saudi Arabia that are using it to bomb weddings.
Yeah.
Where's the outrage on that? Where's the Democrats saying, hey, maybe this bleeds into our society? If we are the empire and we're selling the most weapons to theocratic dictatorships that are using them to behead people in the public square for sorcery, maybe we should take a fucking step back and say, hey, maybe this all actually reflects our leadership. Maybe in this reality star obsessed culture where we make these people into instantaneous celebrities, maybe all of these things are components of why we have this unique phenomenon in our country. But no one's done that, Duncan. We just like to blame the exits and entrances to schools. We want to say that transparent backpacks and bulletproof blankets are the solution.
Fuck.
And all these people who want to say, and I have my own opinions about gun control, but I find it hilarious that they claim that there's it's totalitarianism, right? If we talk about banning, the bumper stocks or any of this shit because it's a slippery slope. Why isn't it totalitarian to have Dana Loesch talk about militarizing schools, putting metal detectors in there, putting cops everywhere? I mean, that to me is fucking totalitarian as fuck.
Well, I had a really dark moment as I was. Well, one, man, it's like, God, I'm an old. This is when you get these signs from the universe, like you're getting old now. But one of them was, I think I tweeted something that I thought was brilliant. Which was like, I tweeted like, you know what, next step, it's going to be like the TSA is going to be in every school. And then right away someone like tweeted back like, that's every inner city school now.
Wow.
That's what it's like there now. Now, what I was actually thinking is I don't mean like metal detectors. I mean like they're going to have TSA agents where you have to get to school a couple hours early. You've got to get your shit rifled through. There's going to be dogs. There's going to be scanners.
Right.
And it's going to take you 2 hours to get into your school.
Right.
And then you're going to get and it's going to be a police state. And then I started thinking like, oh, I get it. Of course, this does make sense. Which is like if you did want to create a police state, the best way to start is in the schools. Start in the schools. Set it up so the schools become little totalitarian states.
Yep.
So get the students used to it. No, this is just normal. We're protecting you, man. We're protecting you. You don't know. Get used to these security guards and officers and drones. Drones.
Yeah, drones.
Did you hear that about the prisons?
No.
So this is a new thing where they're doing an experimental program where there's drones in the prisons. So now when you're in a prison yard, there's drones floating above you, watching you. And theoretically, like in your cells, instead of guards, it's going to be drones going by. So, yeah, it's going to be like drones at these schools. You're going to be walking to your class, and a drone is going to just hover in front of you, maybe do a retinal scan.
Just to make sure that you're
do a
behaving.
Blood. Yeah, check your
make sure that you're sober.
Biosignals, how what your temperature is, see what your pulse is looking like, how dilated your eyes are, or what drugs are you on, a pheromone check. do a quick scan.
Oh my
God.
God.
Shit, man, this kid's pulse is up a little bit. His eyes are dilating in a way that...
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, that's where it gets really terrifying.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Because right now it's like, in a weird way, the security apparatus is visible right now.
Right.
So at least we can see the totalitarianism. The next step is when the security apparatus is not visible or is not quite as noticeable. So we just walk... Oh my God, now I'm on a rant. I'm going to stop it, but I'll tell you.
That's really scary.
I go on Reddit conspiracy late at night for some reasons. I don't know why. Sometimes a lot of stuff on there is just fucking lunatics, but every once in a while there's shit that's real. And one of the things they put is Alexa's monitoring you. That's and you can actually go into your Alexa settings. Do you have an Alexa? Of course you don't. You go to the Alexa settings and you can look at your Alexa history.
Yeah. And
if you scan through it, it has recorded random bits of just weirdness for me for like a year and a half. It has a year and a half of monitoring me, and it has, we couldn't translate, it just says we couldn't translate this to text. Listen if you want. And you just hit...
it just records it randomly throughout the year, just you talking?
You could hear my wife and I, like, in the midst of, I don't know, some argument where she is saying, let's talk about this. That's all. I don't know what we were, like, talking about, but it was serious with that moment. I don't know what it was. And it's just randomly just, like, sniffing little bits of audio and saving it on the cloud. It's just sitting on the fucking cloud. All these little Alexas, they're everywhere, and they're just vacuuming up little tidbits of conversation that are just sitting there for some reason. Yeah, you can, if anyone out there, if you have an Alexa and you want to freak your fucking shit out, go look at the history of the Alexa, and it's recorded you. And it's recorded for as long as you've had that fucking thing.
Oh my God, that's so scary.
I know, because Abby, but what you're so great, you're so good at describing.
Yeah.
The empire of the United States. And I love that you keep referring to it as an empire, and because that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it's an evolved empire.
Yes.
Because they figured it out. We can't go around with the robes anymore, guys.
Right.
We got to not wear the robes. We're going to have a president, not an emperor. It's going to be someone who comes and goes, a little puppet person, just like we always had. I'm sure emperors always had little puppet people that work for them. That was probably a big part of empire.
Yeah.
Find the puppet man who you're going to control, who's going to get killed more than likely, so you won't get killed. It all makes sense. But let's camo a little bit. Camouflage, man. What's so amazing about evolution is the looking at the ability for things to camouflage and like how that's part of the evolutionary process is the world rewards great camouflage by letting you live. And so, the United States is an empire. It's a very not so well camouflaged, pretty well camouflaged
to
empire.
Americans.
What's that?
I said it works really well because we've conditioned ourselves to think that we're actually the greatest country in the world, that we're the moral arbitrator of everything that's right and holy.
Yes.
We deem who's the enemy. We decide basically world policy. So yeah, I mean we've conditioned ourselves into thinking that we have the freest press, the world's greatest democracy. There's all these myths that you have to debunk and deconstruct to actually make people realize it's actually the opposite of what we've been told. We're actually the most dangerous, violent force that the world has ever seen.
That's right. But where it gets before we get to that, I just want to point out that the next step in camouflage is, we're going to monitor you. We're going to fucking watch everything you do. And we're going to know who you are at all times. But you're not going to see it. You can just pretend it's not there. But it's there. We're watching. That's the final phase of it. That's the final stage of it, I think. It's just we're going to be watching you and just deal with it. And I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, is that the worst thing? Is that I don't know. It's confusing, but just I wanted to make that point.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, where it gets really confusing to me is ever since I was a kid, I knew the news is bullshit. They talk weird. They promote war. War's coming when they start talking about some country being evil. All of a sudden, out of the blue, they get us primed. It's like the news is like to war what foreplay is to sex, right? They get us all fucking turned on and pissed, and then there's a war, and we just kind of accept it. They lube us up. So where it gets a little confusing to me is now we have the president saying that news is fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
So the state is attacking the propaganda mechanism of the state. The thing that formerly was the propaganda mechanism of the state is being attacked by the state. So can you explain this to me? What is happening here?
Yeah. And before I get into that, I wanted to say also it's different. You know, a lot of people say the U.S. is falling in global power and we're in the death throes of the empire. I agree with that. But the dangerous thing about the state of the U.S. as compared to other empires falling in the past is that the U.S., again, has the military bases all over the world, has personnel everywhere. We're not going to go out without a fight. You think that the U.S. is going to like give up its power militarily without actually killing a shitload of people? You know, I mean, what are we going to do with all these weapons and having, you know, all of these countries under our thumb? To your point about Trump, it is confusing, right? It is confusing that Trump, you know, and it appears to a lot of people that Trump is fighting this deep state apparatus and that he's really this anti-establishment figure. Again, we're in this dueling reality of mass hallucinations where you have everything that isn't worshiping Trump fake news. But you have to look at, this is also a billionaire-funded media apparatus too, the Breitbarts, InfoWars, and Fox News. So that is 100% adorating Trump, 100% worshiping Trump, and that is also a huge part of media, of state media. It just depends on the hyper-partisan nature of where people are have their loyalties. But in terms of your point, the neoliberal blob, this institution of mainstream media, that the CNNs, ABCs, and all of these people, the DC neoliberal punditry. Huffington Post, absolutely. They all hate Trump. Why do they hate Trump? They hate Trump because Trump removes the mask of empire. They hate Trump because Trump is basically exposing what the system really is. Trump, for the first time, he's like Netanyahu for Israel. Trump removes the mask and he's like, we're fucking belligerent, misogynistic, bigoted, bumbling around, right? And these pundits, they've groomed the public. They've groomed the masses into accepting and worshiping someone like Obama, who makes empire palatable to the rest of the world. He's able to sell it. He's this really established guy, just like Hillary. She was she's the woman. She's just like Obama sold the empire right as we were in the cusp of this revolution after the Bush administration. Obama comes in, tightens it all up, and carries it through. And they wanted Hillary to just continue that legacy. Trump comes in and fucks it all up. He basically shows the rest of the world. The rest of the world is like, this is what America really is to us. We know the repercussions of the empire. And to Americans, we're just offended that Trump has basically delegitimized us, even though the rest of the world has already seen us for who we really are.
I gotcha.
And so the media hates Trump for that reason. They don't hate Trump. They don't criticize Trump for the right reasons. They don't criticize Trump for upping drone strikes 400%. They don't criticize Trump for carpet bombing neighborhoods. They don't criticize Trump for selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. They just criticize him for things like paying off a porn star. You know, like these things that are just very superficial and actually have no substance whatsoever.
Grab her by the pussy.
Yeah, grab her by the blink. I love how kids in the future, I heard someone saying this at the Comedy Store. He's like, in the future, our kids are going to be filling out multiple choice questions on a test. It's like, grab her by the blank. This is our world, man. This is our world. But it is confusing because people are like, look, the media hates Trump. That means that Trump's good. And I think that it's not as simple as that, because obviously a lot of the media that's hyper-partisan right-wing billionaire, the Koch brother-funded libertarian networks and also the InfoWars and Fox News love Trump. They love him. It's just this blob, this punditry class that lost their power. When Hillary lost, they all saw that their futures were dwindling. They were like, oh shit, where do I stand now in this place? And I saw it when I was in DC. These people just want access. They can't handle losing their access and losing their power. And I think when Trump got in, they just thought, oh shit, where does that leave us?
Where does it leave them? What's the future for these people?
I mean, they're gonna keep trying, Duncan. That's why we see them continuing over and over and over again with the Russia stuff, because again, they can't accept reality. In the DNI report from the intelligence community, they were so desperate to blame and absolve their failures on anything except themselves that they blame Russia for everything. We see that. They blamed me as part of the DNI report, my old show on RT. They actually said that was part of the reason why we have Trump. Yeah, that's how desperate they are. That's how desperate they are.
Holy shit, you're the one who did it.
Yeah, I did it.
So in a weird way, you're partially responsible for peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Yeah, exactly. I want the peace prize. Yeah.
How weird. So, I mean, are you a Trump supporter? You don't seem like
No, God, no.
So, you don't like Trump, but you are confusing. It's great. I love it because it should be this complex. We want things to be easier to understand. Why should they be easy to understand? It's a convoluted mess is what it is. And it seems like what you're saying is essentially we have these two outlets.
Factions,
factions, and they are at war with each other. And one of them has... But which one, if you had to pick?
Yeah.
Sorry to ask this.
Yeah.
But if you had to pick between these factions... Which one would you want to be in power?
See, that's the problem, Duncan, because that was what I felt like was the biggest conundrum with the 2016 election. I hated Hillary and I hated Trump, and I thought, this is fucking awful. You're making people choose between the two worst people that could possibly be the choices for the presidency and the CEO of the empire. And I think that on one hand... Trump is awful. He's galvanized generals who are bloodthirsty neocons and evangelicals, right, to surround him, who are from the fucking year 1600, who are setting us back hundreds of years. On the other hand, you have the neoliberal blob people like Hillary Clinton, who, again, make empire palatable, make people asleep. And if Hillary were, if Hillary were alive today, if Hillary were president today, people would be asleep. People would not be out in the streets. They wouldn't be protesting the mass deportation of immigrants, even though Obama deported more people than any other president combined.
All American presidents.
All of these things. Yeah, all of these things people would not be out complaining about or fighting. And so for that reason alone, I feel like I would rather have Trump only because, and I'm saying this not lightly, because I understand, tons of people are facing really devastating life choices of being deported. Undocumented people are being, living a really crazy life right now under Trump. But however, the opening is there for change. The opening finally with Trump as our president is there for people to wake up again to what the system really is and what it represents and actually fight to change it. Because I think if Hillary won, you're just going to have people just hypnotized just like Obama. And we're going to just, again, remove ourselves from everything that we're doing in the Middle East. And just as long as we're comfortable, we don't care, Duncan. And so things need to be uncomfortable. Things need to get a lot worse before they can get better. I truly do believe that.
This is, to me, the really scary thing about it. If you kind of look at, like, the American presidents as a kidnapper, I don't know which movie it is. Some movies, people get kidnapped. People end up in desperate situations, but the person who's kidnapped them is kind of acting like they're their friend. Like that weird thing where
Stockholm syndrome or whatever?
Yeah, well, not even Stockholm
syndrome.
It's sort of like I don't know if you've ever been conned before, but if you ever get conned, so when you're getting conned, the first phase of getting conned is the person acts like they're your friend, but you start thinking, oh shit, I'm getting conned.
Right.
but the next phase of getting conned is getting mugged.
Right.
Getting mugged is the same thing as getting conned. A mugger just takes your fucking money and says, give me your money, and doesn't do the song and dance around taking your money so that they walk away, and then you think about it like, shit, I got ripped off. So, but if you look at the progression of like, okay, so I've got you where I want you. I'm going to pretend to be your friend. Oh, look, I'm this articulate, sophisticated, elite, educated, charismatic man who seems so beautiful and peaceful. It's like, you're here, that thing you're hearing in the back rooms of the house.
Don't pay attention to the
definitely
screams.
People getting killed. Unquestionably, people are getting killed. You're right about that. But hey, check me out on Letterman. I make baseball references. I make jokes about the Jonas Brothers. Yes, you're right. I am murdering people. And it's... So you're kind of like, oh, okay,
so
cool,
true.
Cool, he's cool. Whereas, like,
so true.
We get Trump, but that's where, like, suddenly the person doing it goes from being like, look, I just want you to be happy. Yes, I'm murdering people, but it's the right thing to do. This is what we do. To shut the fuck up. Oh, were you sad I'm killing people?
Yeah.
When?
I'm going to torture their families, too.
Yeah. Now what are you going to fucking do? Do something. You're going to do something? What are you going to do? That's the next phase. Well, that's where it becomes fascism, right? That's where it becomes full-on totalitarian when it goes from because Mussolini wasn't pretending to be a nice person.
Right.
Like, have you seen what his main building looked like? Have you ever seen pictures of Mussolini?
What is it?
It just looks like something straight out of hell that demons would live in. Like, look it up. It's like they didn't even try to make it seem happy. It's not the White House.
Yeah.
This beautiful, maybe fairy tale looking place. It's like a fucking terrifying looking satanic building that a person inside was like, yeah, I'm Mussolini.
Yeah, who do you think we are?
I'm a fucking fascist.
Right.
And so that to me is like, I love what you're saying, because it's sort of like, well, this is going to like create perhaps a push towards a more peaceful world and a less warmongering government. But then I just think, no, maybe the scary idea is, this is just like the next phase of power where they're like, all right, we can take these stupid masks off. Whew, man, those shoes were too fucking tight.
No, exactly. That is when you, again, empire has learned and the U.S. government has learned on how to be relatable to people. And the hijacking of identity politics, this hijacking of like revolutionary language to sell warmongers like Hillary Clinton. You know, she's a woman.
Yeah.
You know, what's next? A trans person or gay person? And then we're just going to be like, it doesn't matter what they're doing as long as you can get behind this idea. And then that just sells all of the policies around the world, Duncan. You're totally right. That is the future. That is the dystopian future hellhole, is everyone thinking that you're free.
You have to imagine that if you're Trump and you're a narcissistic, power-hungry billionaire who's like making shit happen. I'm just thinking, if I put myself in his shoes at night, sitting in the White House, thinking that I brought peace to the Korean Peninsula, you know, probably I'm bored, so I'm going to go through as much like, I'm going to just write down like 5 people I hate, and then use all of my state power to like look at all their emails. You know he does that. At night Trump goes through his enemies' emails and just laughs his ass off. You know he does. He can, right?
Yeah.
He has that level of security clearance, right? Like he could call someone at the NSA, right? And give them a name.
Right.
And be like, hey, can you send me their emails from the last 5 years? And just send me the images in the emails, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
He could do that, right?
Yeah.
Is that me just confabulating something? Or
No, he could do whatever the fuck he wants. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he does do that.
I'm sure
Guaranteed
he
does do that. And not only does he do it, I bet he has parties with his friends, and they all sit around and they laugh their fucking asses off at all the dick pics Obama has sent. You know, if Obama sent a dick pic, Trump has it now.
We're talking about a guy that would call people pretending to be his lawyer because he wanted, you know what I mean? I mean, this is a guy who is totally off his shit.
And it's sad because
What is he doing?
he's seen the aliens. Like, you know, Trump has probably seen the aliens.
Right.
And
He
just
saw
like,
the
whatever.
corpse. Yeah.
He's been like, whatever.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care. He's like seen them in the White
Right,
House.
right.
Like, get the little squigglers out of here. I don't like them. Just keep them out of my office. But so we know that he's doing that. But you know, Abby, if you're Trump, you do fantasize about how great it would feel to put on a fucking robe and have a scepter and stand in front of the planet and get worshipped. He thinks that. I bet he thinks
wants that
I could
so
get
bad.
this done so much faster as an emperor.
Right.
And there's people who have to say to him, just relax, Your Highness. Give us a little time. We just have a few other places we need to fix. And then we can come out again. We can come out, you know, like we can like emerge again.
He's such a wannabe dictator. Yeah. I mean, he's getting there. Just give him another year of executive orders and shuffling around these Supreme Court judges and judicial nominees.
It won't be Trump.
Yeah.
Trump's going to get some weird, you know, Trump will just one day, years down the line, maybe, I don't know, he's just going to like eat a bad fucking hamburger and get some food poisoning. And we're like, whoa, that's nuts.
Yeah, they're like, he dropped dead from eating a hamburger.
Holy
Weird.
shit, that's crazy. And that's when someone that we've never even heard of,
Right.
Magistrate Williams or some weird, you know,
Cernovich it's going to be President Cernovich.
But I want to, you know, this is mostly ridiculous, but I do want to ask you.
Yeah.
So let's imagine
that
suddenly Trump is supposed to show up for a press conference. It isn't Trump. It's a beautiful, powerful man we've never heard of who's like, I'm running the show now. And the military is behind me. And the corporations are behind me. And America, this is the new America.
Yeah.
This is how we're doing it. What do you think would happen?
It depends on what happened to Trump. Did he die?
He had food poisoning. He got sick. Pence was in there for a second. Then Pence comes out. We think he's going to talk. And he just it's like bringing up the next comic. Yeah. He's like, I want you all to introduce, I'm going to introduce you to Magistrate Steele. And a guy's going to come out and he's like, yeah, this is pretty much how it is now. We're not really going to do the election stuff. You guys knew that was bullshit.
Right.
Here's what happened. We got infiltrated by the Russians.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to set things straight. It means we have to suspend the elections because all the machines have been taken over. There's really no choice. This is just an end result. Obama will be standing behind him. We have to do it this way. We were completely infiltrated by the Russians, so we got to call off the elections. We can't really do the thing we were doing before. We've got to take care of business for a few years. Something like that. What do you think would happen?
It's a good question. I would like to think that people would just have a large-scale revolt, but I think we're in such a hyper-partisan reality, Duncan, that half the country literally does believe that the Russians have infiltrated us. So I feel like the Democrats would be like, this is what we need. The Russians did this, and we need people to, just take over everything. And then the other half would be the militia people who think that the deep state took out Trump and would go with their guns in the streets and start the revolution, just like Alex Jones is warning everyone about.
They would start the revolution.
They would start a really dangerous revolution.
Just imagine though.
Right.
That because I don't think that happens. I think what happens is there will some people take to the streets.
Yeah.
They're immediately mowed down by machine gun fire and Apache helicopters, and I think that the front line of people who get mowed down are like, you know what? I like Magistrate Steele.
Yeah.
Maybe he's okay.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
It's just like that. I mean,
Right.
I think you could do it in 3 days. I think it could be done in just one speech, let them run out in the streets, just mow them down. And now, we'll go to war with Russia. We're going to have a little World War III go down, and then we're going to just do it. We're going to big push, the final thing. We're going to do it.
You're totally right, because when Donald Trump won, I thought, Trump's never going to win. I was like, if he does, there's going to be a revolution the next day.
Nope.
Or that, and look what happened, Duncan. Here we are almost 2 years into the presidency, and nothing has happened. People have accepted it. It's very easy to condition people immediately into accepting this dystopian nightmare that we're living in. And so I totally agree.
But it isn't a nightmare. It's
a nightmare to a lot of people, but you're right. It's not a nightmare
to
a lot.
Goddamn. See, this is my problem.
Yeah.
I always forget.
Yeah.
It's so easy to be like, it's not a nightmare.
Right.
Yeah, everyone podcasts. You do your podcast show. Everyone's podcast. We all podcast. We just podcast.
Yeah, just everyone gets a podcast.
You're right. So for a lot of people, this thing that we're in right now is like some kind of nightmarish thing, and yet still nothing.
Right.
Nothing. No one's really doing anything except sitting back and letting the anaconda squeeze tighter.
That's a really disturbing just notion that people would just sit back and let Magistrate
Steele
take over.
I think it would just be like,
as long as we could still podcast, then
we would podcast about Magistrate Steele, and they would let Magistrate Steele would laugh.
Right.
He would be like, I listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you are upset with me. I know.
I'm a podcaster myself.
He would have his own podcast.
That's the future.
He would be, but I think it would just be more like he would come out and be really affable and just be like, guys, look, I know what I look like, and you're right. I'm an emperor.
Right.
I'm the new emperor, and I know.
You just have to laugh about it. It's just
let's get used to it,
right?
Because think about it. Really, this can be a lot better than it is right now with our current democracy. And then suddenly people would think, maybe he's right. All Magistrate Steele has to say is like, you know what? We aren't doing that college tuition thing anymore. It's all free. Everyone will go to college for free. That's it. Everyone goes to college for free, and we're going to make sure that there's a basic income for everybody. Yeah. I'm going to start sending every single American will receive every 2 weeks a check for $500. Guys, I know that's not enough to live on, but it's close. It's $1,000 a month extra that you're going to have. And I think that at that point, most people in the country be like, you know what? He's not so bad.
You know what, though? Now that I think about it, again, to the point of people, you need to make people think that they have a choice. And that's why capitalism, under our system, is so successful. Because even though half the country is living in poverty, Duncan, and people, 70% of Americans don't have more than $1,000 in their bank account, they still believe that they're free, and they still believe that this is the best system in the world and that they can be rich. Everyone's just a Donald Trump in the making. So I think that when you take that agency away, even though it is a myth largely, when you take that agency away from people, I think that people's psychology changes. And that it wouldn't be as easy to just rule over society. I think that people would be like, holy shit, we no longer have freedom. So there's something very unique about the idea of freedom and this idea, this notion of what America is, that continues to keep us, working hard and being good old bees.
Okay, I don't mean to keep going back to this ridiculous scenario. But I'm saying like a young, charismatic person somehow ends up there and it's like, no, we were doing it all wrong. We're not going to do these global wars anymore. Right. We're not going to do this anymore. I'm nationalizing everything. Oh, we're taking the money back from these banks. We're going to give people this and that. We're just going to give you whatever you want. We're going to get this is the thing. This is the new America now. It's not what it was before. Maybe do a couple of executions. Yeah. Get some like people from Pfizer or whatever. Hey, this is the guy who's making this is the guy who's making millions and millions of dollars by selling poison to people, addictive poison. We're gonna look. Oh, we just shot him in the head. Right. Then people are gonna maybe be like, wait a minute, this is kind of awesome.
Wait a minute.
Whoa, holy shit! They're like nationalizing oh my god! And on top of it, friends, marijuana, it's legal now. Right. Things like that. I think that people might be a little more likely to go with it with just a little bit of
a little bit,
because they've already taken so much shit away from us. Right. That is just a human right, and obviously we should have access to marijuana, like national. Yeah. Marijuana should just be legal. This is an easy thing to give back. Oh no, here you go. You can have that. The thing you should have had anyway. We're just gonna let you have it now. Yeah. We're gonna give you that. We're gonna give you a free education. The only difference is like we're gonna have to do some things overseas. Yeah. Couple of things overseas.
Got to clean house first.
A little world war.
Just one little tiny world war.
yeah. Or even creepier, a little like merging. Instead of this like we're just going to merge. We're now like Russia, China. I think freaking Moshe Kasher, the comedian, said that to me as really spooky. He's like, the spooky thing is that's what's going to happen. It's just like a new, what was it called? A new axis, right? Which is the United States, China, Russia, I maybe throw Israel into the mix, right? So now we just have these like main superpowers that merge into one superpower.
That's scary as hell.
No war, no World War III, just like a natural. Don't you think that's that's what's going to happen?
If we don't come to a giant war again, which I do think is going to happen, unfortunately, because I do, absolutely. Because look, we're still competing with all of these powers. Russia and China are not going to go along with the domination and hegemony of the U.S. And so there has to be something that's going to come to a head before we get to that point.
What is it?
Of the unipolar world.
How does it get? Just if you had to, no one's going to hold it against you if you get this wrong. Yeah, they will. But just if you had to put money down,
oh my god!
Satanic casino.
There's a couple of things that could erupt. As we know, Korea is one of them. That we can go either way on that one. I think the Pakistan Kashmir border is another one that's a hot spot. The Ukraine thing could get really heated. But yeah, those are some hot spots around the world that I think could go out of control in terms of like a hot war. Plus Syria. Look, this is a region that we've been trying to start essentially a war for the last 5 years. And that's one thing. If Hillary were in office, we would have already had a no-fly zone in Syria within the first 2 months. So it just is offensive when people are like, people who actually worked for Hillary Clinton, thanking Susan Sarandon. Like literally being like, thanks, Susan Sarandon, after Trump bombed Syria. And it's like, wait, did Susan Sarandon bomb Syria? I think fucking Trump bombed Syria. But it's like Hillary would have been bombing Syria immediately if she got into office. So it's just nuts that people can't accept what a warmongering corporate shill Hillary was. But I think Syria is a huge hotspot. And that's why Obama at least was smart enough to not continue to send weapons to the rebels there. But Trump, unfortunately, because he's trying to acquiesce too much and bend over backwards to people who are like, no, you need to be harder on Russia. He's doing a lot of shit wrong. He authorized a giant $700 billion defense bill, where $500 million of that is going to build up U.S. aggression in the Baltics to counter Russian aggression. It's like, what does that mean? $500 million more going to fund neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And the rebels in Syria, who, that could be a really slippery slope there. Duncan.
They're neo-Nazis, and that's who those people are?
There's a lot of neo-Nazis, the Azov battalion, and a lot of these people in Ukraine who are total Nazis. You see this every day, stories coming out where there's, thousands and thousands of Nazi-strong marches, actual Nazis who are getting into elected positions there. And, no peep from the mainstream media, and no peep from Israel. Amazingly, as concerned as they claim to be about anti-Semitism and the rise of Nazism, it seems like they're only concerned with discrediting pro-Palestinian activists, and they're not concerned with the rise of Nazism in Poland or Ukraine or here. I don't really see them commenting much on that. It just seems like they really just, I don't know.
I find it interesting that when people, so like they put these signs up, and they're like, if you come here, you're going to get shot. And then
Israel?
Yeah. The Palestinians.
Yeah,
people go there and they get shot. And to me, if you really want to understand how it must feel to be a Palestinian, understand where your brain would have to be if there was a sign somewhere saying, if you come here, you're going to get shot, and you still go there. You're desperate to the point that you don't really care if you die. That's what's going on over there. When people get to the point where they don't care if they die. This is a conversation that I had about the immolation of the Tibetan monks. Mm-hmm. To self-immolate, that's the last resort. Like, you don't self-immolate if there's like 4 other things you could try before that.
Right.
No one's setting themselves on fire and thinking like, well, I could have like written a letter to someone. They're setting yourself on fire because there's nothing else left to do and you're trying to send a message. So whatever's going on over there in Palestine, one thing for sure is they've gotten to the point where they don't care if they get shot. They're willing to get shot. Also, they're using slingshots. And every time they shoot a missile over, which it's fucked. Killing is fucked. Missile scatters all over like a playground. It gets shot down by the Iron Shield. It's weird how many people immediately start tweeting like, see, they're savages! They're savages! Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you at least say, well, the savagery is on both sides? I mean, that's fair to say. Like, if you're gunning down people who are burning tires, I don't know.
Well, really quickly, I think that there's several things to say. It's not a both sides issue, and I used to think that too, Duncan, but there's one side that is being brutally occupied by another. I mean, Israel is a settler colonial state that is installing an apartheid and brutal occupation system. Gaza is different than the West Bank. West Bank is under brutal military occupation from Israeli soldiers, dehumanizing checkpoints, etc. But Gaza is Palestine. That is part of Palestine. So there is no border. The border fence, quote unquote, is really a prison fence that is literally encaging 2 million people into an open air prison. It's a cage.
Aren't they building a seawall too around
they can't even leave. Like, if you try to leave as a Palestinian in Gaza, you will be executed. If you're like a fisherman and you go out too far to fish, you will get executed by Israeli soldiers.
I've heard they're building they're actually wanting to build some kind of seawall out there.
Not surprising.
So okay,
not surprising.
Okay, so if I'm a Palestinian,
yeah,
and I am not a member of Hamas,
right?
I was born in Palestine. And I want to leave. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you know what? This isn't the best place to live anymore. I don't like it here. How do I leave?
So if you're in the West Bank, you can leave, but a lot of the times you can't travel freely. So it depends on where you're born. If you're born in Gaza, you're born dead. You can't leave. And I know people who've lived in Gaza their whole lives because they can't travel. And
there's nowhere
caged.
to go.
No.
You can't go to... There's not an exit.
No.
So wait. I live in the Gaza Strip.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? I want to move.
Yeah.
No,
you can't. Oh my God.
I want to move to Syria. It's better there.
No, you can't. You can apply for a permit to maybe leave, but you don't get approved to leave. That's why people are killing themselves. And also, to your point about the rockets, Hamas, They call everything in the Gaza Strip a Hamas target just because Hamas is the democratically elected leadership. It's an armed resistance movement, and people would argue, that's legal to have an armed resistance when you're being brutally occupied. But that aside, this latest March of Return, where 1,300 people were shot in one day from live ammunition, 500 Palestinians were shot in the head by snipers who were perched up on a fence. I mean, beyond a fence, 100 yards away from these protests, sniping people with sniper scopes, kids in their scope, medics. They shot 19 paramedics in one day. They killed one. I mean, there's press. 3 journalists died. Children, 7 children were killed in one day. So when you're deliberately shooting people who are unarmed, Duncan, these people were unarmed protesters, thousands, 35,000 people were unarmed, protesting their imprisonment. These people are protesting the fact that they are caged like animals. 97% of the water is contaminated with sewage. They only get 3 hours of electricity a day in Gaza, and you can't travel. So if you have cancer, you can't get treatment. You are born dead. And so a lot of these people have no choice but to protest, and Hamas stepped back. Hamas didn't have anything to do with these protests. The fact that people are using Hamas as an excuse to execute 110 people, including kids, press, and medics, they're fucking sick. You're a sick person if you can't see that this is wrong and justifying this massacre by saying that Hamas planned it or staged it. The snipers saw people in their scopes and they decided to pull the trigger. There's only one side doing the killing here. So it makes me sick that people want to blame this on Hamas. And if you were in Gaza, you would understand what these people go through on a daily basis. And you would understand that there's no will to live. You have no dignity for life. You have no life to live. And the fact that they were protesting en masse peacefully and were still gunned down, mowed down by snipers is just beyond the pale, Duncan. And you had no one criticizing it who was in our government other than Bernie Sanders. And even he said Hamas violence does not excuse this massacre. It's like, what Hamas violence? I didn't see shit. I didn't see one Hamas armed soldier. All I saw were people throwing rocks. And when you throw a rock at a fucking fortified tank, well, I'm sorry. I don't agree that you should be executed.
Wow.
That's insane.
Fuck, man. No one knows this.
No.
I mean, like, I don't know it. So I have no way to fact.
Right.
I trust you. I believe what you're saying.
Fact check everything I'm saying.
So we've got a part of the world where there are how many people are there trapped?
1.8 million.
So where 1.8 million people have been enclosed in an open air prison where they're getting power for 3 hours a day and they can't leave. There's no way out. They're getting gunned down. Is there anything that people can do about this? Like, what is the hope for them? Are they just dead? Is it some kind of very slow, long-term execution by confinement?
Yeah, I think there's an ethnic purity that Israel's trying to attain, and that's why you see a lot of alt-right Nazis who love Netanyahu and love Israel, because like Richard Spencer, he was like, this is what we need. We need an ethno-supremacist state to have white people, and Israel really is a white supremacist ethno-national state where they want to expunge and expel all the indigenous population, all the
not
Arabs, and all the
Israel.
All the Palestinians. No, of course not everyone in Israel.
It's just the government.
The government. But unfortunately, the government, like I think with Trump, I think Trump reflects a lot of the true nature of what America is, and I think that Netanyahu reflects a lot of the true nature of what Israel is. Because, again, Israel is a settler colonial state, even though it started off socialist with the kibbutzes and a lot of progressive ideals, like having a refuge for Holocaust survivors.
Beautiful.
It has turned into a kind of there's a fascistic streak that actually is an inevitability of having a settler colonial state built on the ethnic cleansing of an indigenous population, that it still goes on to this day.
What do we do?
What do we do?
Yeah.
So Palestinians have asked us, Duncan, and this is why, even though there is a left within Israel, it's small. There isn't enough people pushing the government to the left, and there isn't enough people actually calling to end the occupation and apartheid state. And these are a lot of people who are indoctrinated from youth. Like, you're surrounded by people who you are told want to kill you and hate you.
Yeah.
Like, I get it to a certain extent.
Well, they do. I mean, it is one thing that would be safe to say. They do want. If I was living in an open air prison, where my friends have been shot and bombs have been dropped on me, it's not like I'm going to feel great about the people who've been doing that for my entire life.
Right.
So I think it is fair to say that many Palestinians probably would like to fight back
Yeah, they
and
would like to fight back.
Kill people.
And that's why they elected Hamas in Gaza, because
Right.
they wanted an armed resistance that were fighting their
I'm
oppressors.
saying that just so that like the complexity of the situation becomes
complex.
clear. This is not a group of like people who are over there like, oh God, we only want
Right.
love and peace.
Right.
They're fucking pissed
Yeah.
off. They get 3 hours of electricity a day and they've been getting shot at.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of them didn't choose that. Some of them helped dig tunnels and did suicide bombs and it fought back. But we do have two groups of people who really don't like each other, right? That's safe to say. Like, the Palestinians don't like the Israelis don't like the Palestinians, and the Israelis are winning.
Yes.
That's the situation.
Yes. And I think that the Palestinians have asked us. You see Natalie Portman, who was essentially an ambassador for Israel, not technically, but she essentially was. She actually boycotted this conference that was going on a couple months ago. And she said, because of recent events in Palestine, I don't feel comfortable going and accepting this award. And they were going to pay her like $1 million or something. And so that was a huge deal.
Right.
You have people like Adele, who actually said she refuses to play in Israel. You have the electronic duo The Knife, who has boycotted Israel. And you have Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking boycotted scientific conferences in Israel because he agreed with Palestinians calling for us to have a scientific and artistic and cultural boycott of Israel until they end the occupation and, end this apartheid state.
Do you think that's why he died? They unplugged
He was
his
taken
ass.
out.
Shut the
He was
fuck
taken
up.
out.
Hawking, pull his fucking cords.
But that's all we can do. All we can do is support the Palestinian call for BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions, to support, boycotting Israel until they stop
What
they're
do?
doing.
Like, okay, let's say you and I, now we're not working for the CIA anymore. Somehow they've made us the leaders of Israel.
Yeah.
Now we're like, all right, we don't want to do this anymore. So what can we do? What actions can we take to tell these how many millions of people? 1.5 million?
1.8.
1.8. What can we do to tell these 1.8 million people, hey guys, we fucked up. We shouldn't
Right.
have shot.
Right.
I know many of you watched your grandparents' brains get splattered all over
Yeah.
the wall. So, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Very sorry. we dropped on. You were, sending missiles at us too. We just
Right.
won. But now we're sorry. So can you please forgive us and not try to get revenge?
Right. Well, I think that what's unfortunate, Duncan, is it's not like they're just sitting back and being like, well, there's nothing we can do now. Kind of like Guantanamo. It's like, well, what are we going to do? Let these people out and then they want to kill us now?
Right.
As if that's a reason to continue their occupation. But I think that what's amazing
It is a reason.
Is that Israel is continuing to build settlements in what should have been the Palestinian state.
Right.
So there's, you hear people say we need a two-state solution. Unfortunately, whatever state would have existed for Palestine has been overrun by illegal settlements from Israelis and Jewish settlers who
Right.
move from Rhode Island or whatever, fucking move on top of an Arab village, and then is getting set up by a guard post and electricity lines and water lines from the Israeli military. Unfortunately, there has been such little respect for Palestinian sovereignty and land that there'd have to be a massive, apology tour, but on top of that, like a rescinding of all these settlements and being
Not
like,
gonna
okay.
happen.
So I think that first and foremost, stop building settlements, because until that happens, nothing can really be taken seriously. Everything's just taken with a grain of salt. Whatever Israel says doesn't matter because their actions speak louder than words. But,
So there's really nothing. What?
Stop building settlements. Have one state with equal rights for all.
Stop
the
building settlements or
apartheid.
kill them all.
That's what they, yeah.
Stop building settlements, or
Drop a nuke.
or just sort of slowly like squeeze down there, and then it just seems like you would let them escape by sea or something.
That's what I don't understand. Yeah, they can't even let them escape. It's like I can't even think of another refugee like ethnic cleansing in the world that you actually can't leave.
That's
if you're a
where it gets
refugee.
confusing.
Yeah, they just want them all to die. That's really disturbing.
It's the most. Well, you got them backed into a corner.
Right.
You have a recipe for just.
And then you act shocked when they send a rocket over, these glorified fireworks. You're like, oh my fucking God. Well, of course we need to bomb a UN shelter or a school. It's like, well,
I mean, I wouldn't call it glorified fireworks. I saw the rocket that landed in that fucking playground. That's real. They definitely want to blow people up. By the way, I'm not saying.
No, I know, but they really. I don't. When's the last time a rocket fell in a playground? What video did you see? Because I'm actually curious. Because
it happened. It happened today.
It happened today.
Or yesterday. Yeah, the rocket flew over. So there was some shelling that happened. A rocket landed. They took pictures of it. They're like, look, it definitely wasn't fireworks. I mean, like, listen. The this is a confusing thing to me. And you just helped illustrate what I thought it was.
Yeah.
But it's hard to talk about this without just sounding like a monster. But if I was living in Palestine, I can't imagine. Look, I have 3 hours of electricity a day. I don't really care anymore. Like, I'm going to do whatever. I don't care. Right. Just shoot me. At least I'll die a hero. It'll seem awesome. Maybe I'll get on the news. Who gives a fuck? All my friends are killed or have been killed. Everyone knows someone who's died. 1.8 million people.
Oh, everyone has like a horror story.
Everyone has a horror story. Everyone's got PTSD.
Yeah.
Everyone's broken. The world doesn't care.
Right.
We're fucked. So I'm just going to, I don't care. I'm going to fire a fucking rocket, and I hope it lands on the playground. This is if I'm, like, super depressed and angry and have PTSD. But so that means, okay, well, there really isn't a solution outside of decimating them and then, pretending it never happened. I mean, that's where it gets fucking weird, right?
Well, I mean, I think that we do have hope. We look at South Africa, and there was a BDS of South Africa, too. It wasn't that white people in South Africa woke up one day and they were like, you know what, we're not going to be racist anymore. They were forced from the outside to end their apartheid state. And same with Israel. They need to be forced from the international community to end apartheid, so provide equal laws and equal rights for everyone living within Israel and Palestine.
Right.
But right now, that's not the way it is. And the brutal occupation, this is an illegal thing under international law as well. All of this is illegal. So I don't think that, the fact that Palestinians, a lot of them are upset and will hold resentment toward Israelis is enough to continue to imprison them and brutalize them on a daily basis. I think that we should all be adults and say this is really fucked up and wrong. And it's better now than never to stop it.
Well, I hope that we have peace. I don't know. It's just the most confusing thing. And no matter what I say, you just end up sounding like a fucking lazy piece of shit. Oh, I hope there's peace. Thanks for doing my show. Let me do a quick Squarespace commercial. No, I'm just kidding. It's like you really do feel incredibly impotent over here.
I know.
You really do anything at all. And I guess that's it. Like, well, all right. I guess I just won't do any podcasts in Israel. But the truth is I would fly to Israel and do podcasts. I do want to go there. I want to see it. I think
just go to West Bank too. Don't just go to Israel, because a lot of people just go there and then they're like, you're fucking crazy. It's like, well, did you go to the West Bank and actually talk to Palestinians too?
Right.
And I think that's saying, they're all going to go and kill them and stuff. Like the West Bank, you can travel around, and they are under brutal occupation, but there's still they've largely practiced nonviolence. There's reports of people being stabbed every now and again, but for the most part, the fact that Palestinians are largely nonviolent, living under the situation that they're in, I think says a lot.
Who's their main spokesperson? Are there any voices coming out of Palestine?
There's a lot, but that's another problem is that they pretend like this guy Mahmoud Abbas, who is the Palestinian Authority's president, is like their leader, but it's really a puppet government to pretend like Palestinians have sovereignty. So it's what Israel likes to use to pretend look, Palestinians have their own state and their own leadership. No, it's a puppet government that is essentially in the pocket of the Israeli government, and Abbas will do whatever Israel says. So they're not sovereign, they're not independent. I mean, we're talking about people in the West Bank that can't even hold up a flag. That's the occupation. You can't be a part of a political party. You can't raise a flag. They don't have guns, no weapons.
You can't raise a flag?
No, you can't raise a
what
flag
as a Palestinian. What happens if you raise a flag?
It's against the law. We met 2 people who were shot for putting up a flag in their hilltop in this town called Sebastia. They were in the hospital because they were almost killed by Israeli forces for putting a flag on a hilltop. So yeah, that's the state of how crazy it is there.
It's dizzying.
Yeah, it is.
It makes me feel like I'm having an anxiety.
I know. And that's what's so dizzying about seeing the reports coming out from the media saying people died in clashes, Palestine, and painting it as if it's just this conflict that we know that we know that the reality is a little bit different than that.
They do say that. They say they died. People
Yeah, they
died.
died.
Palestinians died.
Yeah, they all died.
Of murder.
Yeah, they died of murder. They died from sniper fire.
You got me
Headshots.
fired up today, Abby. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's great chatting with you.
So much. Everyone check out the Empire Files and also Media Roots Radio with my brother. Thanks so much, Duncan. You're the best.
You're the best. Thank you, Abby.
Thanks so much.
That was Abby Martin, everybody.